The Indolence of the Filipino. Good day, everyone. I, Chelsea Lorraine M. Rito, will discuss to you the historical background of the indolence of the Filipino. Sobre la indolencia de Filipinos, also known as the indolence of the Filipino, was Jose Rizal's longest essay, published in La Solidaridad on July 15, 1819, until September 1890, in response to Mr. Sanciano's assertion that Filipino are lazy. El Progreso de Filipinas, Ang Progreso sa Pilipinas, was published in 1881 that was written by Gregorio Sanciano, on which Rizal's article was based. Sanciano noticed a Filipino farmer having a siesta at 9 in the morning since he was finished with his labor, and this led to his discovery. The Indolence of the Filipino was written by Rizal to help us understand that, as a Filipino citizens, we have rights and deserve to be treated fairly. This was also released in argument to claim that Filipinos are lazy. In his essay, he stated that indolence does exist among us Filipinos, but for a variety of reasons, over time, a variety of factors, including the climate and political instability, contribute to Filipinos' laziness. Rizal showed that the Filipinos are not inherently indolent, and that, even more, before the Spaniards arrived, we were actively involved in a variety of economic activities, including agriculture, farming, fishing, and many more, and trade with other races. This may be seen in the work of our ancestors even before the invasion of conquerors, such as the creation of the Banawi rice terraces, one of the seven wonders of the world, which was totally manufactured and constructed by Filipinos and is ready to plant and harvest before dawn. This essay, The Indolence of the Filipino, is a justification against the detestation of the tyrants that accuses Filipinos to be indolent, unskilled, and useless.
La Indolencia de los Filipinos, or the Indolence of the Filipinos, examines the alleged laziness and lack of productivity among Filipinos under Spanish colonial rule. Rizal pointed out that long before the coming of the Spaniards, the Filipinos were industrious and hardworking. The Spanish reign brought about a decline in economic activities because of certain causes. First, the establishment of the galleon trade cut off all previous associations of the Philippines with other countries in Asia and Middle East. As a result, business was only conducted with Spain through Mexico. Because of this, the small businesses and handicrafts industry that flourished during the pre-Spanish period gradually disappeared. Second, Spain also extinguished the natives' love of work because of the implementation of forced labor. Because of the war between Spain and other countries in Europe, as well as the Muslims in Mindanao, the Filipinos were compelled to work in shipyards, roads, and other public works, abandoning agriculture, industry, and commerce. Third, Spain did not protect the people against foreign invaders and pirates. With no arms to defend themselves, the natives were killed, their houses are burned, and their lands destroyed. As a result of this, the Filipinos were forced to become nomads. Lost interest in cultivating their lands or in rebuilding the industries that were shut down, and simply became submissive to the mercy of God. Fourth, there was a crooked system of education, if it was considered an education. What was being taught in schools were repetitive prayers and other things that could not be used by the students to lead the country to progress. There were no courses in agriculture, industry, etc., which were badly needed by the Philippines during those times.
If the Spanish rulers were a bad example to despise manual labor, the officials reported to work at noon and left early, all the while doing nothing in line with their duties. The women were seen constantly followed by servants who dressed them and found them personal things which they ought to have done for themselves. Sixth, gambling was established and widely propagated during those times. Almost every day there were cockfights, and during feast days, the government officials and friars were the first to engage in all sorts of bets and gambles. Seventh, there was a crooked system of religion. The friars taught the naive Filipinos that it was easier for a poor man to enter heaven, and so they preferred not to work and remain poor so that they could easily enter heaven after they died. Lastly, the taxes were extremely high, so much that a huge portion of what they earned went to the government or to the friars. When the object of their labor was removed and they were exploited, they were reduced to inaction. Rizal admitted that the Filipinos did not work so hard because they were wise enough to adjust themselves to the warm tropical climate. An hour's work under that burning sun in the midst of pernicious influence springing from the nature inactivity is equal to a day's labor in a temperate climate.
Okay, so now let us proceed to the analysis relating to the contemporary issues of the Philippines. I am Shire Jane Silas Piñas, together with my partner, Marian Nasi Basailaje. So analysis, it is important to note that indolence in the Philippines is a chronic malady, but not a hereditary one. Truth is, before the Spaniards arrived on these lands, the natives were industrially conducting business with China, Japan, Arabia, Malaysia, and other countries in the Middle. The reasons for this sad indolence were clearly stated in the essay, and were not based only on presumptions, but were grounded in fact taken from history. So another thing that we might add that had caused this indolence is the lack of unity among the Filipino people. In the absence of unity and oneness, the people did not have the power to fight the hostile attacks of the government and of the other forces of society. There would be also no voice, no leader to sow progress and to cultivate it so that it may be reaped in due time. In such a condition, the Philippines remained a country that was lifeless, dead, simply existing and not living. As Rizal stated in conclusion, a man in the Philippines is an individual. He is not merely a citizen of a country. It can clearly be deduced from the writing that the cause of the indolence attributed to our race is Spain.
To proceed, when the Filipinos wanted to study and learn, there were no schools, and if there were any, they lacked sufficient resources and did not present more useful knowledge. Then, when the Filipinos wanted to establish their businesses, there was not enough capital nor protection from the government. And when the Filipinos tried to cultivate their lands and establish various industries, they were made to pay enormous taxes and were exploited by the foreign rules. It is not only the Philippines, but also other countries that may be called indolent depending on the criteria upon which such a label is based. One cannot blame a country that was deprived of its dignity, to have lost its will to continue building its foundation upon the backs of its people, especially when the fruits of their labor do not so much as reach their lips. After all, Rizal wanted us to understand that Filipino laziness was not the cause of the Philippines' slow progress. Rather, laziness was the result of abuse and discrimination, government inaction, rampant corruption, and church doctrines that were wrongdoing the Spanish regime in the Philippines. He defended Filipinos by claiming that they are not idle by nature because they have been engaged in economic pursuits such as agriculture and trading long before the arrival of the Spaniards. The Filipinos were indeed diligent and hardworking even before the Spaniards arrived. We are not fools, we are not puppets who simply do as we are commanded. Nevertheless, we are human beings who are motivated by our will towards the accomplishment of our objectives and who strive for the preservation of our race. And that would be all. Thank you.
Conclusion of the La Indolencia de los Filipinos.
So, Dr. Jose Rizal's essay that the indolence of the Filipino explores the underdevelopment and laziness of the Filipino people during the Spanish colonial era. Rizal argues that the repressive rule of the Spaniards led to demoralization, apathy, and a lack of opportunities. The colonial system, characterized by forced labor, taxes, and feudal customs, hindered ingenuity and industry growth. Rizal also highlights the negative effects of friarocracy, which influenced Spanish friars and impeded progress. Ang Katamaran ng Pilipino provides a complex analysis of historical, sociocultural, and economic factors contributing to the Filipino people's perceptions of laziness. Rizal's writing urged individuals to rise up, band together, and work toward social, political, and economic reforms to free those oppressed by the Spanish.
The Indolence of the Filipino, wrote by Jose Rizal, is a response to the accusation of Indio or Malay indolence. He admits the existence of indolence among the Filipinos, but it could be attributed to a number of reasons. He traces its causes to factors such as the climate and social disorders. He defends the Filipinos by saying that they are by nature not indolent, because in fact, even before the arrival of Spaniards, Filipinos have been engaged in economic activities such as agriculture and trade. Indolence therefore has more deeply rooted causes such as abuse and discrimination, inaction of the government, rampant corruption and red tape, wrong doctrines of the Church, and wrong examples from some Spaniards who lead lives of indolence which ultimately led to the deterioration of Filipinos' values. In the end, Rizal sums up the main causes of indolence to the limited training and education Filipino natives receive and to the lack of national sentiments and unity among them. According to Rizal, education and liberty, which are the foundation for progress and prosperity, would be the cure to Filipino indolence.